Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I hope those that are watching right now are doing great. You know that this chapter title is about the reproductions in organism and is after SSC level biology is one of the important part of it. And those students, those who already studied the previous chapters, you know that there are some consequences and relations between the chapter. And you know that this chapter is something big. And there are some parts that we need to understand fully so that it would be helpful for us to understand in the next level. Because when we'll study about HSC level zoology and even A-level biology, then you need to understand things more deeply. And now you'll see that what are the contents of this chapter, and you'll see that these figures may be drawn in your book, and it's all about a flower. In this chapter I shall focus basically what are the parts or wholes of flower and what are their functions, and there are some new terms of this chapter that we need to learn. So now you'll see that what are the main content. Number one, we need to know what is the concept of reproduction, as the chapter title is reproduction of organism. As it is said organism, so we need to understand things based on two different parts, that reproduction in plants and reproduction in animals. So from number 1 to number 7 is all about the reproduction in plants, and then we need to know about the animal reproductions. So this is another big part. Those who are actually want to be a doctor in their own life and as a career to want to be a doctor, then you know that this one is something like your life. So animal reproductions and some other parts of human body in the other sectors of zoology, that is the main concern on that aspect. But as reproduction of organism, we need to learn about reproduction in plants and then reproduction in animals. So what are the parts? We need to know the concept, then flowers, what are the wholes of flowers, what is their function, pollination, you know about self-pollination and cross-pollinations, how it happens, and most beautiful activities in nature. Then microsporogenesis, megasporogenesis, and then after we need to know about fertilization. So this is a consecutive process. Like whenever you know about microsporogenesis and megasporogenesis, then about fertilization, and then after the development of new sporophyte. So these four words that you are seeing here is all about the reproductive parts, and that is why we need to learn it sequentially. So whenever we need to know, we will learn about microsporogenesis as well as megasporogenesis. Because now what about the concept of organism? The reproduction of organism. In case of reproduction, it's a physiological activity that organisms reproduce themselves for not being extinct. Because you know that reproduction is a process by which the organism is producing their offspring, and that is why they're continuing their life after death and after death and after death. So that is why reproduction is important for an species, that they will be livable in this planet. So main concept of these is the reproductions. How many types of reproductions are there? Simply speaking, I said that number 1 is sexual, and number 2 is asexual. So we'll learn about it more deeply. Sexual reproduction are those actually which is happening with the presence of the male and female gamete, and these are haploid cell, gametic cell. So when sexual reproduction is that type of reproduction where a male gamete and a female gamete will take place, and they will fuse and they will be fertilized, and then new life will begin, and then the production of zygote. So the sexual reproduction is that type of reproduction where two different type of gametes will take place. And then asexual is reproduction, is that where there is no type of like reproductive cells up there. So there would be like spores. So in other part we will explain about asexual reproductions, but in this case we will learn about the flowers, the part of the flowers. So I hope those important topic that we need to learn about it, each and every single topic is important, and there is a linkage between these topics, and we need to learn sequentially, and then after completing the whole chapter there will be a visualizations about the reproductions, that what it is, and in case of plants, what is flowers, what are the parts of the flowers, what is their functions and other activities. So if I erase this, let's talk about flower. What is flower? Flower is actually a reproductive organ in plants, and simply speaking, that there are a lot of types of flowers. Let me introduce one thing, that what are the parts and the whorls of flowers. Number one, whorls of flower. Number one, that is thalamus. Thalamus is one of the whorls of flowers. Number two is calyx. Number three is corolla. Number four, this is essential, that is androecium. And number five, this is androecium and gynoecium. So this number one, thalamus, number two, calyx, number three, corolla, number four, androecium, and number five, gynoecium, these are the whorls of flowers. And what are the types of it? If you see that all these whorls, if it is present in any flower, then it's called complete flowers. Like we said, China rose and datura is a complete flowers. And again, if any of them is absent in any flowers, then we say this is a incomplete flowers. So what we can say, the types, there are a number of types of flowers. So we can say that complete flowers are those that presence of all whorls in a single flowers. Number two is incomplete, where actually there is an absence of any whorl of them. Again, the androecium and gynoecium, they are called the essential whorl of flower. Essential. So we say this is essential whorl, as because they will take place in reproduction. So among these five whorls, these two whorls are the essential, as because they will take place in reproduction. And these one, they are actually assisting whorls. Assisting whorls. So, if any of them is absent in any flower, then it's called incomplete flowers. Again, one thing. Suppose this androecium and gynoecium, if it is present in a single flower, then we say that is bisexual flower. Bisexual flowers. If any of them is absent in any flower, suppose this is a single androecium is present in one flower, a single gynoecium is present in another flower, then we say unisexual flower. And if any of them is not present, then it's called neuter flower. It's called neuter flower. Okay, so this is a very preliminary explanatory lectures, and you know that there are new terms that we need to study in this chapter. So firstly, that we need to learn the definition of flower, and then the parts of flower or whorls of flower, that is thalamus, calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. So androecium, it means that is mainly that will take part of the male gametophyte. I mean, that means there will be productions of male gamete. So andro, it's male related. Gyno, is female related. So in case of meaning the word and remembering the word, you just remember that andro is male related and gyne is female related. So gynesium is that hole that will be producing the female gamete like ovum, and androsium is that part that will be producing sperm. Okay, so complete flowers, incomplete flowers, bisexual, unisexual and neuter flowers. Now you see one thing, that if in any plants, two different gametes is producing in the same plants, then it's called monoecious flower. Monoecious plants, number one. Monoecious plants. So what is monoecious plants? And in case of different thing that is producing dioecious plants. So if two different reproductive cells is producing in the same plants, they're called monoecious. If different plants is producing the different reproductive cells, they're called the dioecious plants. And then these holes, you must remember that these three are called the assisting holes and these two are called essential holes. Now look at the picture. I hope this is known to you. The last part where it is actually the tip of the floral axis, this is called the pedicel. Pedicel. So again, one thing is important, this is pedicel, and when there is just upward in between these ovary and this part is called the calyx. This is called the calyx, and the part of calyx is known as sepal. And then you see this round shape and this stalk-like part, these all together, these are the gynecium. So this is ovary, and then this one is a style, and the part of it is in the upper part of the apical structure is called the stigma. So the gynecium, it is actually the three parts. Number one, it's the last one is the ovary, and then stalk-like structure is called the style, and this one is stigma. And you see this part is the beautiful one, which is actually surrounding, is like a beautiful and colorful bird, and this is corolla. So corolla is the outermost hole of a flower, and the part of this hole and the part of this corolla is called petal. So the part of calyx is called sepal. So you remember one thing, the part of calyx is known as sepal. This is known as sepal, and the part of corolla is known as petal. So don't mix with this word. Think that calyx, this is also the outermost hole of a plant, of a flower, and the part of this calyx is known as sepal. Sometimes what happens, all these sepals are conjoined together, they're fused together, they're called gamocephalous. Number one. So I'm just giving you the words, and I hope you can remember this one. This is gamocephalous. Gamocephalous. No, this one should be cephalous. And number two is polycephalous. What is this actually? Gamocephalous means all the sepal, that means the part of the calyx, they are fused together. If they fuse together, I mean the outermost hole of the flower is calyx and the part of it sepal. If all the sepal are fused together, then it's called gamocephalous. But if they're not fused, then it's called polycephalous. Okay? And these are the petal. Petal are actually Petal are the part of the corolla. You know, the corolla is the most beautiful part. Same, if the corolla are fused together, then this is called gamopetalos. So gamopetalos. And if the part of the corolla, that means petal, are not fused together, then it's called polypetalous. So you just remember the word. I know that is actually not related with the physics and chemistry. When you study physics and chemistry, they might sound different, but here these words is a different word. That is why when you study about biology, think about something different. So that is why this naming is important. Student of English version right now, those are watching, please try to remember those in a way so that you can understand what is the reason of that naming. So gamo, together, poly, different. So if the sepal, that is the part of calyx, is sepal and the part of corolla is petal, if they conjoin together, then in case of sepal you say gamosepalous. In case of corolla or petal you say gamopetalous. Polycephalous, polypetalous. Okay? So the 5 holes again. This is thalamus, and actually this is actually floral axis, and thalamus, and then calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. Okay? Now let me tell you one thing. What about androecium and gynoecium? You see that if you took part an androecium in another way, suppose this one, suppose I took part another way of this androecium, then the apical structure of these androecium, this is actually androecium which is connected with the stamen. You know, this one is anther, and this one is filament, and together they are called stamen. So one or more stamen will form androecium. So the part of androecium is called the stamen. It's called the stamen. And another thing that is important here, that where this word is very important, when all these stamen are joined together to form a single axis, that is called monodelphous. That is called monodelphous. Try to remember these words. Monodelphous. Number 1. Monodelphous. What this means, that if you see in China rose, what happens? All the stamen are joined together just in a single axis in China rose, and this is called monodelphous. If these stamen are grouped in 2 different sects and 2 different parts, then it's called diadelphous. Diadelphous. Just remember one thing, diadelphous. And if they group a lot of together, then they call polydelphous. Polydelphous. So what are the words that we are actually trying to remember? This part of this androecium is called stamen. If all the stamen comes together to form in a single axis, then it's called monodelphous. If it creates 2 groups, then it's called diadelphous. If it creates 2 different groups, then it's called polydelphous. But if all the anther comes together, to form a unit group, then this is called syngenesis. This is called syngenesis. Syngenesis. This will come to your exam. This is an important thing. What is syngenesis? Syngenesis means where all the anther comes together to form a same group or a single group or unite together, then it's called syngenesis. So monodelphous, it means when this one, actually the stamen comes together and form a group, monodelphous. When stamen comes together, form two different groups, diadelphous. When stamen together creates many groups, then it's called polydelphous. And anther, the part of the stamen, anther, the apical sac-like part where pollens will be producing, pollens. This is called anther, and this stalk-like structure is called the filament. So stamen are divided into two parts, anther and filament. Okay? One more thing is this one, that is the gynecium. You see that here in gynecium, in the apical part, this is like that, and then a stalk-like structure, and in the round shape, this is the one. And this round shape is known as ovary. Ovary and ovary. And this one, the stalk-like structure, is called the style. The style. And this one is known as stigma. Stigma. So, stigma, style, and ovary makes the gynecium part. And actually gynecium, it depends on the carpels. If it is actually create a same carpels, then it will say monocarpus, and it creates a different part that it calls polycarpus. You see, this word is written at your book, and the main thing is that you need to understand the meaning of it. So actually I was in a hurry in this lecture because you know that this chapter requires a lot more different lectures, because you know that I just covered simply the part of the flower in this chapter. When you will study on this chapter, you just remember one thing, that no lines of your book should be avoided. No lines, because you should not think that what is the type of questions would come on your exam paper. Rather, you need to think that do you really understand the whole chapters. So at first of this chapter, it is said that the concept of reproduction. So simply we know that reproduction is a physiological process by which the organisms are producing the offsprings, so not to become extinct. And the types, sexual and asexual. Then we studied about flower a little bit. What is the types of flower, and what are actually the parts or whorls of flower. So number 1 we have thalamus, number 2 we have calyx, number 3 corolla, number 4 androsium, and number 5 gynecium. So what we studied, these 3 are called the assisting whorls, and these 2 are essential. Why? Because they will take place in the reproduction part, which is important. So the thalamus is the outermost part, calyx is also the outermost part, and also corolla is the outermost part. All these outermost parts functions is a protective functions. They will actually protect the inner side of the flower from suns, from other attacks, or even from the insects. But one more thing, corolla is a beautiful and colorful part. Even calyx also. If this is a green calyx, then they will take part of the photosynthesis, so it will be a part of the food production system. But if it is a different color, then it also attracts all the insects for pollinations. So when pollinations happens, when insects are attracting to the flowers, and they are actually roaming around from here to here, and then they are collecting, honeybees, and then what happens? Beautiful part of the nature is that they are taking part of the pollinations. So when they are actually transferring the pollen grains from here to here, and they're mixing it up, the natural reproductions is going on. That is why that is the beautiful part. So calyx, corolla, outermost part. Androecium, gynecium, essential part. Androecium is actually it's made of two parts, that is anther and filament. So anther and filament creates androecium. In other side, gynecium, stigma, style and ovary. Ovary is the place where ovum will be producing. Ovum. So here will be an sac. We'll study about it. Here there will be ovum, and then there is actually synergid. Then this is secondary nucleus, and this is antipodal cell. We'll study about it when we'll study about fertilizations and development of sporophyte on the other part. So this is the place where ovum will be produced. This is the part where pollen would be produced. Okay, so simply those who actually, I took a long time to study in this chapter, but here it's important. So let me know after watching this tutorial, do you really memorize the part and the words I have written here? You just remember one thing, that what is complete flowers, what is incomplete flowers, what is bisexual, unisexual and neuter flowers and other things. So in the next tutorial I'm coming up with the next part of this chapter. See you and let me know your feedback. Take care. Bye.